This podcast is highly sponsored by Thriveys. Thriveys is the first mental health product line with affordable products you can use whenever you need something to lean on for emotional or mental support. Currently, we have coloring books of all ages and affirmation mugs. There are some new products coming up, so you need to make sure that you check out Thriveys on Instagram and Facebook so that you don't miss out on the updates. And yes, listener donations are also welcome. You can drop your donation on 0770-338-440. The number is registered in the names of Navu Network. If you're not in Uganda, remember to add the country code +256 770 338 440. Hey, welcome to Hashtag with Nabuguzi Chiwanuka. This is the #1 African millennial podcast that sits at the intersection of mental health, self-discovery, and personal growth. If you're new here, welcome to your new virtual home. Be sure you hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening in so that you don't miss out on any of the future episodes. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for being the heartbeat of the show. On this week's episode, I am joined by the incredibly talented scholar V. Akinyi. She is the author of Hop, Skip, and... Alright, so when she says the name of the novel, she says Hop, Skip, and Jump, but I've been confused for a while and I did not confess this to her. But as I record this, I was like, wait, I should have asked her why she crossed out jump. I'll find out. So yes, she is the author of Hop, Skip, and Jump, and our conversation is a mixture of emotions. There are some giggles, moments of sadness, and some heartfelt reflections. In the conversation, Scholar takes us through the powerful personal journey that inspired her novel. It's a story deeply tied to the 2007-2008 post-election violence in Kenya. When I was having this conversation with her, and I think what opened us fully into the depth of the conversation, I remembered the conversation I had with Amare Odwar. And she was like, most of the times when you see things happening, we have this attitude that she called the over-there-ness. And it really sat well for this conversation, even for the people that Scholar shared about that were shocked that she is a victim of the 2007-2008 post-election violence in Kenya. It's a conversation about processing trauma, using storytelling as a tool for healing, and finding light in the darkest places. So I wanted to put a listener's discretion, but I'm sure this is a very beautiful story that you wouldn't want to miss. But still, listener's discretion is advised. If you personally experienced the specific post-election violence that we are going to be having a conversation about, of course, listener's discretion is advised. Scholar, welcome to Hashtag with Nabuguzi Chiwanuka.
Thank you, Nabu. It's nice to be here today. I've been looking forward to this. Yeah.
It's such a great pleasure. You know, the time we got to meet, I actually didn't, I don't know why. I don't know. I didn't think there would be a book we are talking about that is yours.
Yeah.
Of course, we talked about another one that wasn't, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are with the book now.
Congratulations.
And a new title. Thank you.
Yeah. For the people that do not know who Scholar is, Scholar V. Akinyi, I'm going to start calling you Vena if you don't tell me what V is.
I was hoping that wouldn't come up because I think after the release of my book, everyone started calling me Vena, and I'd really protest and tell them, yo, it's not my name. But then everyone would be asking me, why is it there in your name? It's just abbreviated as V. And then there is this character in your book that has similar qualities like you. So I really tried to fight it. But yeah, the V in my name doesn't stand for Vena. That was just I wouldn't call it a coincidence because again it was intended to be so. Yeah, but it does. The V in my name does not stand for V. Yeah, for Vena. I mean, yeah.
So for the person that may not have a single idea of who the other person is on the microphone, please take the floor. Let us know you.
All right. Thank you. My name is Kola V. Akinyi. I'm a Kenyan. I'm in my late 20s. I'm an author. That is my latest title.
Right.
I'm an author of the book Hope, Skip and Jump, with the word jump crossed. Currently I work as an editor. I love stories. I love African stories. There is a lot to me, but for the sake of this conversation, I think the author of Hope, Skip and Jump will do.
You know, we are very open to the breadth of the person. Is it breadth or depth? We are opening to knowing the person to the core. If you're talking about yourself as an editor right now, the first time I think I got to know you, which I asked you recently because I was like, wait, what? Tell me I'm not wrong. I knew you were a lawyer. What changed?
I think it's the first time we knew each other on Facebook, or when we connected on Facebook. I was interning at a law firm.
Oh,
yeah. So you ran with that, but currently I work as an editor. I've always worked as an editor, actually, for the longest time. Yeah, I'm always birthing stories, working on stories, and writing, of course. I just never published a book. I just never published a book, but I've done a lot of stories published in journals and magazines. And if you're keen, I hope people after listening to this podcast will go and look for what I've written. You'll realize that my stories tend to lean on the children's voices. So I really have a soft spot for kids. I remember someone once told me that it seems I stagnated at some point in my life because I have a lot of childless in me. So it reflects, the children's voices reflect a lot on my writing. Yeah.
You've talked about yourself as someone that has gotten some of your stories published. The story that introduced me to you was that story on circumcision. It was very short, yet striking. Because it stayed with me like, I need to know who this person is because this is too good. I need to know the person more. So now here we are with Hop, Skip and Jump.
Yeah.
What inspired you to dedicate a book to the 2007 and /8 elections, post-election violence?
I think everyone knows worldwide that there were elections skirmishes in Kenya in 2007, 2008. It was in the news. It was all over, it was covered. Now, what inspired me? First, I'm a writer, so definitely I was going to write something eventually. But what inspired me to write Hope, Skip and Jump is it significantly altered my life as a child because I was a child then. I was in primary school. So it significantly altered my life. And I know for sure that growing up, I carried on some of the trauma with me growing up and the decisions that I made as an adult or as a result of what happened then. So it just hit me, when now I'm grown up and there is all these sorts of self-awareness, and I realized, there's something that happened when I was younger, and it significantly affected me. But nobody ever stops to ask kids what these things do to them, how it affects them. Yeah, because when you're moved from school to another school, you're just supposed to move along and go to school. And when your life significantly changes as a child, when you see things like dead bodies and everything, nobody ever stops to ask children, how does this affect you? And so it significantly affected me. It significantly affected my siblings, my friends. And I thought it was about time, because anyway, my stories lean towards giving children voices in the things that are considered the adult stuff, because politics is just considered the adult stuff. I mean, we're just kids. If you read Hop, Skip, and Jump, you realize that children are just children. They didn't care about what was happening out there. So, but then I realized, this thing that is considered the adult thing really affects the children, and it's time we bring the voices of children to these conversations. Yeah. And the other reason, of course, that was my personal reason. The other reason is history needs to be retold so that we do not go back to the things that we did. And I think the innocence of children really bring out the injustices that come with, all these political skirmishes and wars. So there was also that bit of telling history, but now from a very innocent, childlike voice.
Yeah. When you talk about the significance of a child's voice or hearing their story of how this might have affected them, you've talked about yourself realizing, after doing some self-reflection and assessment, I'm assuming, you came to the space of acknowledging the events, the violence. What is it that you might have seen in yourself that you drew back to those months?
Okay. So when I was growing up, I was I wouldn't say rich. Let's Robin Hood comes to rob us, but we had the comfortable life, where there is safety and there is you're assured of your safety as a child. You feel the comfort. So then within a span, because the post-election violence happened in like 2 months, all that was gone. So good school was gone. An assurance of getting your favorite books was gone, because I grew up as a child who would ask for books and I would get them. I would ask for what and I'd get them immediately without question, And, those are the joys of being a child, asking for toys, asking for books, and just being sure that your parents will be there. They will show up at school for your event, for your performance.
Right.
Then this war happens and your parents are not there. They are gone and you have to survive as a child on your own. And life changes significantly to the point you're not sure if you can go to school anymore. You're not sure if you're going to have your next meal. And your parents will not, because they're parents, they just know they're supposed to provide. There is no point they will start explaining to you why there is no milk anymore, why you have to go to this very rural school where kids are going barefoot when you are used to having 5 sets of uniform for the whole week, So as a child, it affected me. And I think after I grew up, I always lived with the fear of things could change anytime. I never settled in having stuff, because I always had that fear that, right now I'm in school, I'm in the university. But if a strike happens, in fact, I remember I could get, terrible anxiety whenever I heard that there could be possible strike in school, in uni. So I would be like, okay, this is how my education ends, because I keep reliving what happened back then. Yeah, so I also always I was always on a fight or flight mode. Any form of conflict, it's either you really want to fight or I really want to run away, because I always felt like any form of conflict was gonna lead to something bad. Yeah, so I could not confront people. I didn't want anyone to confront me, because if anyone confronts me, it's for me, it's death. That is like death approaching me. And then there is the issue of tribalism, which while you were growing up, these people were just in hop, skip, and jump. I read that these people were just our neighbors, just our friends, just strangers,
Yeah.
But then you realize that now you're an adult and you want to date, but you hear their name and you're like, oh, these people, they attacked us when we were young. These are our enemies. Or it gets ingrained in you that the people from a certain community are your enemies, or these are not good people. Or if you want to marry and you take them home, either your parents will not accept them, or you will not be accepted in their home. So it also affects your way of socializing with people as an adult. Yeah.
Wow. It's when you told this story, when I was reading the book, I realized how we live in different worlds and never as children really get to think about the impact or seriousness of some of these things. Because you say you were in primary, I was in senior 2 at the time. That is 2007. And I think I remember when things were starting out. And it was just a simple conversation like, yeah, those guys are fighting, and that was it. To have to read this I'm like, wait, what? Because in school, you only get to read about the impact of conflict. You see families going apart. And now what you bring for me, what you brought to my awareness in the book is seeing children in the house, looking at the door, waiting for the parents to show up, and nothing. And I was like, because I try to put myself in the shoes of a child at the time. And I'm not certain. I don't know. It's very easy to say, I don't think I would survive, but there are people that survive some incidences. But
I know it's a lot. It's a lot, especially for children who don't understand.
Right.
Because it starts, in the book you say, right, that it starts with just TV. You watch these things on TV and you're like, these are just things that happen on TV,
Yeah.
Because previously you've watched, there's war in Iraq, there's war where. So these are just things that happen on TV and you don't imagine them to happen to you. And even when they happen, you're like, those are just adults fighting. As a child, it doesn't sink in on you how terribly impactful it can be. And then in a blink of an eye, it's happening to you. These people are at your door and your parents are not there to protect you. And even if they were, they wouldn't have protected you as they should. So, yeah.
I first, when we started the conversation, I was like, I'm going to call you Vena.
Okay.
But we're not looking at 3 characters, are they?
3. Yeah, they are 3.
Yeah, Vena, John, and Bob. How, if you aren't Vena, how then did you pick up the characters? How did you develop the stories around them? Were they stories based on your childhood, stories you might have told with the other kids? What was happening there in your imagination?
So largely, the parts of Vena are Vena. It's like I have to admit, but Vena is not me entirely. But largely she is. And these are things that happened. And when I sat down to write, because anyway, I had known I was always going to write a book. About what happened. But then I realized that my experiences will not exactly tell everything. And I know even Hop, Skip and Jump does not cover everything that happened to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But then as a creative, I thought, wow, it would be nice to talk to these other people, to get to know what's happened to them, because this was my story. This is how we ended home. Did they die? Because I remember after we left Naivasha and we went to the rural, now my rural home, I lost touch with my friends. We were young. There was no Facebook.
Right.
So we were very young. There was no way to connect. People had become enemies. I don't think the parents had the need to reconnect to their peers because of all the tribalism and the fights, that kind of thing. So we totally lost touch. So now when I started thinking about putting together the book, I thought, wow, it would be nice to know what happened to friend A, what happened to friend B, what happened to friend C. So they were neighbors. So I made a trip to Naivasha. I started looking for people. I started posting on my Facebook. If you attended this primary school between these years, please reach out.
Wow.
Yeah. So people started reaching out, of course, a few people, and they were like, oh, I remember you. Your dad was this. I remember you. We went to primary school together. Because, after all those over 10 years plus, we've grown, we've forgotten each other's faces. Our faces have changed significantly, but then, we reconnected. So I started asking these people, what happened to you after 2008? So they narrate to me what happened. And I told them, I'm writing a book. I could, based on your story, I could creatively tell it. And Bobo, not true name, and John, they said yes to it. There's one lady who really went through a lot. After she told me a story, then I told her I might want to write it creatively and put it in a book. She was like, no, please, I don't want I don't want you to put my story in the book. And that again informed my style of not giving the adult voices in the book. Because you realize even when as parents, they don't actively participate. They are passive characters in the book. Because I just wanted the story to be about the children. I didn't want to get the perspective of the adults. Yeah. So I really went back and looked for people and talked to them and heard what happened to them. So these are real people. They were at my book launch. They just wanted to remain anonymous. Right. But these are things that happen to real people, real children who are currently adults. But
Oh dear. Because somewhere when they're looking at some documentary, sometimes they say some things have been dramatized. Yeah. So just think that.
Of course, as a writer, as a creative, you have to be creative. You have to dramatize. Like the issue of John and the mental health issues is something. There's a woman, when you were growing up, there's a woman who lost the child, a daughter. We just went for campaigns. You know how when politicians come and there are campaigns and music and everything, and this child disappeared. And this mother turned mad because this was her only child. So she lost her mind because we looked for this girl. She's never been found to date. So I thought, wow, because it was also the campaigns around the elections that would lead to this violence. So I thought, wow, it would be nice to also highlight the mental health issues, and it will be really nice to incorporate this story in my book.
When I got to that page, I because of getting in the space of mental health advocacy, I think I'm mostly, when I'm reading, I noticed, I think over the years, I've grown into the kind of person who is looking at the way how mental health is portrayed in a book, in a movie, anything that I'm consuming. And I think when I got to that page, my heart sank. It's like, oh dear. And to have to see John being an adult, because now he has to turn into an adult to protect the mother from what society says about her. And yet, I mean, he's also a child. So what do they have to deal with themselves with this mother who... you did something there.
Thank you.
You definitely did something there. And I think it also went down to our understanding of, or how we carry ourselves around people struggling mentally. Because I would have imagined that as a society we would have, I'm imagining myself as a character in the book, we would have been more compassionate enough to create some kind of community around this person and not leave them alone. Yeah. Is that something that you were looking at, that we just let people be on their own with their voices in their heads and all we do is, look at them from the corners of our eyes?
I think as an artist, I left that to the reader to decide. Yeah, I left that to the reader to decide because, you see, John was a favorite to the kids. Again, I'm telling the story from the innocence of children.
Yeah.
So John was such a darling to the rest of the kids. He was charming, and everyone wanted to be friends with him. But there's this bit of the children as well who could talk, and you realize that children do not imagine things and say them. They get these ideas from the adults in their lives. Yeah, so it was my way of, asking people to have these mental health conversations with children as well. And in a manner that makes them aware that these are also human beings who need to be loved, who need to be cared for, who need to be seen as human beings and not as outcasts. Because you realize that the children here, they don't sideline John when they're playing. They play with him, they're friends with him. And that is just the essence of children, Like, I don't like quoting the Bible, but the Bible usually says that, children, the innocence of children is what guarantees people the kingdom of God. So there is an innocence that if we all could adopt and treat people with that, just being happy and loving to everyone, regardless. Yeah. I don't know if I've answered you.
You had mentioned earlier that you were not giving so much room for the adults.
Adults, yeah.
I kind of understand where you're coming from with this then. Yeah, okay. Then we got to the book itself, the process of creation, because you've talked about how you had to create some posts and look for former schoolmates, classmates, and also having to go back to Naivasha to look for these people and having conversations with them. What could have been the challenges that you faced in the writing process?
The first challenge, of course, is to just think that, it's time I tell the story. Telling your story is not easy. And I know very many people were shocked when they learned that I was a victim of the post-election violence. They were shocked because I don't know what people expected. I don't know if they expected me to move through life being sad.
I think I don't know. Is it about your character, or is it a thing of what we just talked about in the beginning, that you just see things on TV and leave them there? Because there's a time when I was having a conversation with someone on the podcast, and she mentioned that, rather he mentioned that he was present during the Akinyi violence. When I was in primary school and all these stories were being told in the news, we knew that is happening wherever it's happening. and you go through life not knowing that even your classmate was affected by the Konyi War. And you're an adult, so you get to share a podcast episode, and then a classmate suddenly comments and says, yes, this happened, and you're like, oh,
What?
so so like it's confusing. So I don't know where they were coming from with the shock. What could they have told
so
you?
many people get shocked, I think, because if they never experienced it, they wouldn't know the weight of it until an actual victim explains it. And this is when it dawns on them that, oh my God, these things actually happened to real people. Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, because when they see it on the news, it's just statistics. They'll say some buildings were burned somewhere, 3 people died, but you never get to attach these numbers to people, to actual people that you know. So when you get to see someone who actually went through it, it comes with some sort of shock. So there was that fear of telling my story, because I will tell people I was a victim of that, and they will say, really? So how did this happen? And it looks like in Kenya we say stories ajaba. Stories ajaba means made up stories, some unbelievable tales.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is that. Until the other people who were caught up in it also say, yeah, that is how it happened. So the first challenge was getting the courage to tell the story. The second one was I needed to talk to my folks and tell them there is this thing that happened and I was adversely affected. I don't know if you guys know that I was affected, but I want to write it in a book. But again, they also had their own experiences. So for adults, when you tell them that you want to write a story, most of the time, they think you want to write their experiences. They forget that even you as a child, you have your own experiences, you have your own story. So they will be like, no, you can't say that, you can't, it's not your story to tell. But then I'm like, I'm not going to tell you a story. It's mine that I'm telling. Because we in as much as we experience the same things, everyone experienced it differently. My brother experienced it differently. My younger sister experienced it differently. Everyone has their story, Yeah. So there was also that, because there's shame that comes with violence, with war, with politically instigated. There's a lot of shame that comes with it. And I think, especially for parents, they feel like maybe they failed their children because there was this shift of the quality of life. So maybe they felt like they failed you at some point, but then you're now an adult and you understand why things had to change. So there was also that challenge of, just getting their consent.
Yeah.
I had to convince them that I am not going to tell you part of the story. You're only going to feature passively, but I'm going to tell my story. And again, of course, the process of getting these people to talk, because one lady, like I told you earlier, one lady dropped out. She just told me, I know I have shared with you, but please don't tell my story in your book. In as much as I said, I'm going to twist some things, I am going to change names, she said no. So also getting people to talk about the things that happened to them and have it published in a book was very hard. And then you realize that I think you are going to ask this question, but let me answer before you ask. the style of writing the book, you realize that the characters tell their stories in turns, but all of them are interconnected.
They are. And I was confused in the beginning. So this is what happened. I don't even think I shared this with you earlier. When I first started reading it, it was flowing. And then I would reach somewhere and this is a totally different story. I'm like, what's happening? Yeah. So I don't know how many times I kept going back to the beginning of the book to really understand what is going on. I was a little bit confused at some point. I was like, are these short stories? Are these? But then I'm seeing Vena is back. So I managed to get a hang of it. I don't know after how many pages.
Yeah. So there was that. There was the challenge of telling the stories individually but in an interconnected way, which I found the style of telling my story to be very difficult for even to settle on the style that I used, because I did not want Vena. You realize that somehow Vena is the center of the story,
Right.
because we get her beginning and we get her end. The rest, there is a bit of a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not want to tell the stories of these other people through the voice of Vera. I wanted everyone to tell their stories independently.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at my options, I felt like conversations, rather dialogue in writing, was not going to cut it for me. Narrations from a third person was not going to cut it for me. So then I just went with the style that I chose and said, I am going to alternate these children. A good reader is definitely going to, to connect it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, again, one unique feature of Hop, Skip and Jump, the style that was used to.
I've never seen it anywhere.
Yeah, so eventually when you're done reading, you realize, there was a letter that was written to Vena and was given to John, you know. So you realize that these kids were actually together in the same neighborhood. And the class, you realize that Bobo is very rich, Vena is like middle class, and John is like poor.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to tell the stories through the lens, the different classes in the society. Yeah, so that is why I just wanted to give every character their independent voices. So that is what informed the style that I used.
That's very interesting. I'd mentioned that I've never seen that anywhere. I think that's the reason why I was mostly confused. Like I kept I'd get to another story and I'm like, what is going on? What's going on?
Yeah, I know some people were confused, but the good thing is by the time they get it, they have that aha moment, which makes me as a writer to feel very good, because it doesn't make sense until it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, I understand what she's doing here now. You have dedicated yourself to representing children, as children's advocate.
Yeah.
There's somewhere on page 50. I noticed before the recording that I did not carry the book today. But I had done another quick scan to go back to my rough notes that I had written while reading. And page 50 took me to one of the proverbs that we have in Buganda, where we say omukulu tasobya, which means that an adult never does wrong. And we grow up with this idea that whatever an adult is doing is right. And then yet there is a child here on page 50 asking the dad, but you're adults, you should do the right thing without being reminded, highlighting the laws. Why do you have laws? Why do you have rules to follow? Can you pick up something on that in as far as children and adults sharing space and the misdoings that affect children's upbringing?
I think in the African, I would say in the African context, parents are like God, and you'll see that even in conversations surrounding toxic parents, toxic mothers. People will be shut down and be told that, hey, she's your mom, she's your dad.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a godlike status that is given to people who are older than us. And so, as a child, what the child was trying to say is, if you have the status of God, why won't you just do the godlike thing? Yeah, so what I was trying to say is children have their own worldviews. They see, but they have been conditioned to believe that the adults are the perfect ones. They're like kids are not even allowed in most households. Back then, nowadays there's a bit of soft parenting,
Mm-hmm.
but back then rules were rules, and you were not allowed to question.
Right.
Why can't we watch TV? If a parent just explained to you that if you watch TV late in the night, you will not get enough sleep, it will affect your health, you will not concentrate in class, it will not, it's a conversation you can have with a child that is 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll just be told you cannot watch TV.
Don't ask questions.
No question. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, and it sort of affects how we grow up as adults. I realized that a friend was telling me that she only cooks proper meals when she's having visitors. And that stems from their upbringing, because most African households back then, again, I have to say back then, when visitors are coming, they get all the nice chinaware and they make all the nice food.
Mm-hmm.
So a child grows up knowing, good food is for visitors. Good chinaware is for visitors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I do not deserve the good things in life, but when visitors are coming, I need to up my game.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a godlike status that is given to parents. And as children, we look at them and you're like, oh, you are this big, big, big person. Everything that you do is supposed to be right. I mean, why do you need rules? It's just the kids who need the rules. Yeah. So that is what that is the thing that I was trying to bring out with that conversation between father and daughter.
I like the fact that there was room for explanation and conversation with parent and child. When you talked about your challenges, I anticipated some revisiting of the emotions surrounding that period.
Yeah.
And you just didn't point it out. Do we assume it was easy for you? You had already processed all these things and you're just good to go?
No, it wasn't easy. I started writing this story. Actually, initially, Hope, Skip and Jump was supposed to be a short story, because you realize that I do so well with flash fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So because of all the pain and all the emotions, I just thought, I could just write this story as a flash fiction in 400 words and 500 words and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started writing it, things just kept coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to my editor and told her, well, there is this story that won't just stop. So she told me, then just expand it, just keep writing. But I was at war with myself. I was like, I don't think I can write a book-long story.
Mm-hmm.
But things kept happening. So I started writing and kept going, especially the first few chapters of it. Those were easy because it was more of recollecting childhood.
Right.
But now when I got to the difficult part, I just disappeared.
By disappearing, what do you mean?
For me and tell me, my editor would look for me and tell me, hey, what happened? You don't submit anymore. You don't write. There's nothing on the document. What happened? So sometimes I would just wake up in the night and type and then delete, because the emotions would get very heavy. So I have written Hope, Skip and Jump for a long time, but in bits.
Mm-hmm.
In bits where I start writing it and I'm like, no, I can't do this.
Right.
Let me write it. No, I can't do this. But no, when I decided that it's going to become a book, I had to push myself. Otherwise, it was never going to come out. So I had to push myself through the difficult emotions, and sometimes I would cry. Sometimes I would, of course, when I am researching, I would go back to research and to read what was written in the papers back then. And it would just be so overwhelming for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, the world doesn't know what I'm just about to give them.
Right.
Mm.
How did you take time off for self-care during the writing process? Because how long are we looking at?
In terms of writing the book?
Right.
Honestly, I took time after I think 3 months post the publishing of the book, post the launch, because
post the launch.
Post launch, because I think when I launched the book and people read it immediately, everyone was giving me feedback, and you know how that can be overwhelming because there were so many. Oh my God, you went through this. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, all that. So it just kept piling. And when I sent the book to the village, to my folks, and when they read it, they were like, "What? You could actually remember these things? We thought you were too young then,
right?"
And that was shocked. He was really shocked, and he really felt sorry, and he told me, "I did not know that you carried all this pain with you all this while." So I didn't rest after writing the book. It was stress after stress, because there were all these people tagging you on their reviews, and people texting you, and people wanting you to talk, and people wondering, how did you survive this? And people asking you, "Are you Vena? What happened?" All that. So it was.
Are you Vena is a very big question.
Yes.
I think I don't remember, because I covered the book in May, so I don't remember every other detail. But I think the thing that convinced me that you're not Vena, I'm sorry if I still have the wrong character in mind. Vena had lost a limb, I think.
Vena had lost hearing ability on the left ear.
And she was in a wheelchair, and there was something. Stuff was out. There was something horrid.
Yeah, her leg was broken, but it healed later. But the ear, she lost the hearing ability permanently on the left ear. So for that, you can't really say. You can't really ask me, "Can you hear from your left ear?" If I decide to tell you yes or no, I mean, there is no way of ascertaining.
Yeah. Wow. How long did you say this took to get the book written?
It took me. I started writing actively in 2017.
7 years later.
That is when I knew that I'm definitely going to write a book one day. So I will just write about FGM, and write about domestic violence, and write about happy stories, and post on Facebook. But there was always this story that I want to write, but it starts and stops. So I was just like, no, it's not time. But when the time came, now in 2023, I decided, well, I'm going to sit through the emotions, because I think also with age and self-retrospecting and everything, you sort of learn to get through the emotions. Yeah.
I think this validates there is something I learned this year where they said that procrastination is one of the ways that we learn how to cope with pain and things like that. So I think what you're saying here makes sense, that, man, no, I don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like, let me just sit through it.
For me, I think if I rushed the process, I wouldn't have written Hope, Skip and Jump, because I would have skipped some bits of it. I would have just, I would have finished it as a short story, and I would have never wanted to go back to it, because sometimes my editor would call me and tell me, "Okay, I want us to go through this part and read it." And I was like, "No, I don't want to relive that pain. I've already given you the manuscript. Please just work on it." And this is for very sad stories. It happens to a lot of writers, not just me.
Yeah.
Once you release that pain on paper, you never want to relive it. But unfortunately, once the readers to read the book, oh my God, they will come back to you with
Because
all
we
sorts
want
of
clarity.
reviews, all sorts of stories. They definitely, they will even ask, we want a book reading. I've intentionally not wanted a book reading because I thought I just need to rest this year from all that. Yeah.
Should we look at this compilation as one of your ways of processing emotions and coming to a step to healing?
Yes, definitely. A big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
How has it worked for you so far?
Understanding that I finally got the courage to tell the story.
Yeah.
Knowing that I could see it and tell this to the world, because when you write a book, you never know where it's gonna land.
Mm-hmm.
And just showing myself to people that, hey, this is me, this is part of my trauma, this is what I went through, and this is what some other people went through. It's a step towards healing, because I release it to the world. It's like I ask the world, the rest of the world, to help me carry it.
Mm-hmm.
And while doing it, because of course when I'm writing that story, I'm hoping that it will not happen to the children. So I'm hoping that there is some sense of advocacy, that I will not sit somewhere and think, oh my God, this is going to happen to another 10-year-old. This is going to happen to another 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen to some young girl somewhere, So it's also some form of advocacy to me that is healing, just knowing that I went through this pain, but no other child should go through it, because now people know how it affects people. So it's a part of me educating the world. And if my story will help heal the world, then yeah, it's a healing for me as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The way how you talked about how you do not want the story to be relieved by other younger children right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think shortly after, just a couple of weeks, I believe, after me reading the book, we came, and I think I texted you at the time and you didn't respond. And you don't have to respond if you feel uncomfortable about it. But there was violence that happened in Kenya. Is it last month or July? And I was like, oh, shoot, this is back. Yeah. And I texted you, I was like, hey, I don't remember what I said. But I was checking in to see where you are emotionally, like, oh, dear.
I was very overwhelmed during that time. Yeah, I was very overwhelmed because, yeah, I know what happened in 2007 started as a single attack, and it spiraled really fast, real quick. So I was at a very, I was really stressed. I think I was crying for my country. Yeah, that is all I can say. I wasn't at a very good space emotionally.
I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you.
What message would you love the listener to walk away with?
What's there's a joke that we say in Kenya. I don't know if it's in the rest of the world or in Uganda, but there's a joke that we say that mimi sikuandika barua nizaliwe. To mean I did not send a letter to be born. It is a light joke, but the essence of it is that children need all sorts of protection that they can get. And children are so vulnerable, and I think most of the time we forget that they have their world views. They have their independent worlds where they just, what I write in Hope, Skip and Jump is they were just looking forward to Christmas, new outfits, that is the world that they understand. So they don't understand these other things that happen that we consider serious.
Right.
And eventually, these are the people who grow up to become the voters. These are the people who grow up to become the citizens. So when we sideline them, when we do these things and we don't have them in mind, then I don't know what kind of society you're going to have in the near future. So my parting shot, or my most important message is children need to be protected by all means possible, because when these things happen, when war happens, it's the children because these are vulnerable people, and when these things happen, it affects them, because what is my business? I'm a Luo.
Mm-hmm.
I come from the Luo community. And during that time, during the post-election violence, the Kikuyus were sort of our enemies, the people from the Kikuyu community. Yet, these are the same people I sat with in class. They were my friends. We were competing. We were borrowing each other's books. But now as an adult, I feel like I cannot date a Kamau. I cannot date this person, because they are our enemies politically. And it's a thing. You can't there are some homes where you can't just marry anyone. So the effects go a long way, and we keep recreating these things, We keep recreating, because if I'm not self-aware enough, if I have kids today, I will start telling them that, hey, those people are our enemies.
Right.
And when they grow up, they tell the next generation, those people are our enemies. So there's never going to be any sort of unity. We will always be at loggerheads. So children need to be protected at all costs.
At all costs.
And when we and when we do things, when we do things, I wish we would understand that they are the most vulnerable members of the society. And we must do everything in our power to protect them.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That felt like a therapy session.
Pay me money. How much are you sending me?
Sorry?
Pay my therapy money.
If we convert it into Kenya shillings, if you ask me for $1 million and we convert it into Kenya shillings, I think I can afford it just about now.
But before we leave, how do you feel at the end? I forgot to share with you an emotional wheel, but I know you have words around your emotion, your vocabulary. I'm sure you can express how you feel right now.
Right now,
yeah.
I think I am. Maybe two emotions. I feel relieved that I get to talk about the book and its heaviness. And to sensitize my advocacy. I feel like this podcast has given me an opportunity to advocate further for children. And I also feel sad that these things had to happen in the first place. They shouldn't have. So,
right.
Yeah. We are not supposed to be telling these stories. So, yeah, feel sad. I don't know the exact emotion for the sad that I'm feeling, the exact word, but feeling sad that these things actually happened and they still happen. But also feeling relieved and happy that the advocacy, the podcast has given me an opportunity to give an even stronger voice to the children.
Right. I know we are coming to the end of this. But there is a drive that you're doing.
Yeah.
And this is the second that you're doing, because I saw one last year and now this is happening again. But I cannot pronounce this word. I can't pronounce. I?
Aongediang.
Oh, okay. Just a little bit for someone that when is it happening? Because I'm trying to scroll through. I don't see the date.
It's happening on the 6th of September.
Ooh, 6th of September. This is this weekend.
Yeah, it's this weekend.
But just a bit for those that may want to be a part of it in the future, just give a highlight of the cause behind it, the passion, and then we wrap it up. Because I
All
believe
right.
this is to your heart. It would be an underservice for us to let you go without talking about it.
Thank you so much. So it actually still connects to the book. So after we left Naivasha and went to the village, I was thrust into a village school, and I was very shocked because kids were coming to school without shoes, without sweaters early in the morning. I mean, there was that culture shock. So it sat with me and I realized, my realities are not their realities, but now these are my new schoolmates. They're my new classmates.
Right.
So it stayed with me for long. And then I realized, what can I do? Because, I came from a very good school and went to the village school, and I just stayed there for not for so long. Then I performed and went back to a good school. So I realized that maybe in the village, when they look at me, they could think that they do not understand that I had some privileges that they did not have. And that informed my need to give them some sort of a step ahead, like providing them with sanitary towels so that they don't have to worry about sanitary towels in school, to provide them with books so that they don't have to worry about books. Because I grew up having all the books that I wanted. Right. So it was from childhood that it was a blessing in disguise that we moved to the village so that I could see the alternate reality of the kids. And in adulthood now, I can go back and cushion them. We cannot save everyone. We cannot save the whole world. But I feel like it is very necessary to make sure that the kids have books and they have the sanitary towels so that they can worry about other things, but not these basics.
Right.
Yes, so that is the passion behind it, and it's something that I intend to do yearly. I made it public last year because I had adopted a few girls, but it did not make sense to just adopt a few girls in a school. So I decided, why not use my social capital to adopt all these kids in this school? Then I realized, it's possible. Yeah.
Right. Protect the children at all costs.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nabu. This has been wonderful. Thank you for I know we were supposed we never talk about the behind the scenes, but we were supposed to have this podcast the other day. Then things happened. So thank you so much for your patience and for slotting me in today. It's been wonderful, and let's protect kids at all costs. And I hope to come to your country so that I can change my shillings to your currency and feel like a millionaire.
Careful what you wish for. You had a blackout, and you know. It may just come home.
All right.
The rate, your currency might just fall, and you have a test of it.
I can't put anything beyond my government. It might.
All right, Scholar, do you have a great evening?
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time for this.
Bye.
Bye. Children must be protected at all costs. Yeah. I feel like I should just leave the episode so that we have a reflection on the way how we carry ourselves around children. But I definitely have to do an outro and say official goodbyes. So if you loved the conversation I had with Scholar, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, because without your contribution by subscribing or commenting and giving a review on the podcast wherever you're listening in from, it will be impossible for us to grow. So if you love the conversation, do hit the subscribe button and share the episode with whomever you can. And also don't forget to share your insights about what connected with you on social media. And make sure you tag us. We are at #WeNow on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, our handle is at HTNK Podcast. I'm kind of slow on Twitter. And I've been contemplating on whether I should just abandon it. I need advice. I feel like I need to concentrate on Meta's apps. Ooh, leaving out Elon Musk. But yes, we are there at HTNK Podcast. Make sure you also follow us on YouTube. Ciao. See you in episode 152 next week.